In a world where mutants are considered enemies of humans, 4 young turtles risk their lives to fight a giant monster and save the city. Today, we're going to recap the story of the movie, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem, from 2023 in New York City. A group of soldiers armed with high-powered neutralizers is on their way to the makeshift laboratory of Dr. Baxter Stockman, a geneticist who used to work at a research institute and is now being hunted for creating insects. Meanwhile, Stockman continues his work in an abandoned building and is about to create new mutant animals to become part of his family, as he has never enjoyed the presence of other humans. The geneticist worked for a woman called Cynthia Utram, and when he discovered that she planned to use his creations as biological weapons, Stockman fled and took his research with him. Suddenly, the scientist hears soldiers breaking into his hideout and tries to hide his guinea pigs so that they won't be taken away. When he is arrested, the mutant fly attacks the agents, and just as he was about to be eliminated, the captain starts shooting, causing a huge explosion in the laboratory. In an attempt to protect the insect, Stockman ends up being hit and perishes. Believing that the creature has also been eliminated, the soldiers ransack the laboratory, and at Cynthia's command, they take all the research so that the woman can recreate his experiment. 15 years later, a group of masked turtles roams New York City in the shadows so as not to be seen by humans. After covering a supermarket's cameras, the 4 brothers break into the store to shop and then return home with the goods. On their way home, they find an open-air cinema and decide to stop and watch the movie and observe the humans, who don't even suspect the existence of mutant turtles in their town. While watching those people, Leo and his brothers feel sad, knowing that they will never be able to have the life of normal teenagers, as they have to live hidden in the sewer to avoid being hunted. When they finally get home, Splinter feels relieved, as he was worried about his children being late. The rodent then asks where the youngsters were, and they try to make excuses to explain their delay. However, Leo, the straight arrow of the group, can't lie and reveals that he was watching a movie with the humans. Upon hearing this, Splinter is furious and reminds his children that humans are dangerous monsters who won't think twice before locking them up in cages to carry out experiments. When he realizes that this warning no longer has any effect on the turtles, the mouse decides to tell a story about when he was young. Like all the other rats, Splinter was treated like a disease-carrying pest. The rodent had no friends, no family, and no other animal liked him. He wasn't welcome anywhere until he met a cockroach called Kevin, and they became great friends. However, after the insect was crushed by a human, Splinter devoured him. One day, while hiding in the sewers of New York, he found 4 small turtles playing in a puddle of green liquid and fell in love with them. Those were the first creatures that didn't want to eliminate or devour Splinter, and this awakened in him a great empathy for those hatchlings. So the rat decided to take care of them and ended up being contaminated by the green goo that turned all the animals into humanoids. Since then, the 5 mutants have become a family and have never been separated. Over time, the little turtles became obsessed with the human world, and Splinter decided to take them to see the city. But that was a bad idea. When the humans realized that he was a giant rat, they started chasing him, and they almost were eliminated that night. From that day on, Splinter vowed that he would never again allow humans to harm his children, and it was at this point that he began practicing ninjutsu with the aim of transforming his body into a war machine. As well as taking up martial arts, the rodent began to train his children so that they could defend themselves against humans. Afraid that the turtles would be captured, he forbade them to go near people, and as they broke this rule, the 4 brothers will be grounded for 1 month. During this time, they will have to stay in the sewer without being able to go to the surface. That night, before going to sleep, the teenagers talk about what they would like to do if they could live like normal humans and come to the conclusion that it's better to stop thinking about something that will never happen. In the early hours of the morning, some thieves steal a mysterious cargo that has to be delivered to a guy known as Superfly. After transporting the object into the truck, they try to escape but are chased by the police and end up being surrounded. However, just as they are about to be captured, a giant insect appears and uses its wings to take the truck to its hiding place. Upon discovering that another shipment of radioactive material has been stolen, Cynthia orders her first mate to hide trackers in all the shipments so that they can find Superfly. A month later, the turtles are finally released from their punishment and can rise to the surface. That night, the quartet decides to go to the roof of a building to practice their ninjutsu, and Raphael tries to hit a watermelon with a shuriken, while Donatello uses his cell phone to record the scene. The problem comes when Raphael misses the throw and hits April's helmet. She ends up falling off her motorcycle when she sees her. Leo is completely smitten and notices that a man is stealing the girl's scooter while she is distracted. At this point, he decides to break Splinter's main rule and goes after the thief. His brothers decide to help him, and on entering the garage where the guy is hiding, the Ninja Turtles come across a dangerous gang. Despite having trained in martial arts all their lives, the youngsters have never been in a real fight and end up getting in trouble before they even start fighting the criminals. However, when the gang attacks them, they manage to fight back and defeat them, even though they are outnumbered. After almost being run over several times, Raphael manages to stop the vehicle, and they finally get rid of all the criminals. Suddenly, April appears and is shocked to realize that her scooter has been recovered by a group of mutant turtles. Impressed by this new discovery, the girl takes the opportunity to interview them, as her biggest dream is to become a journalist. She is writing an article about Superfly for the school newspaper, but she knows that everyone will be even more interested in a headline that tells the story of mutant turtles with ninja abilities. Just then, the young woman receives a message from her mother and has to interrupt the interview, but she shares her number with the turtles so that they can get in touch again later. As the quartet returns home, Donatello has an idea for him and his brothers to be accepted as members of society. He believes that if they become superheroes, all humans will accept them, so he proposes that his brothers help him capture Superfly and hand him over to the police. The next morning, they contact April and ask her to provide all the information she has collected to help them capture the villain. If all goes well, the young woman will be able to write a story about them, and the turtles will be seen as heroes. That way, everyone wins. The girl immediately accepts the offer and arranges to meet her new friends at school that evening. When they meet, April opens the gates, and the turtles are thrilled to enter a school for the first time. She then leads the teenagers to her office and presents them with all the information she has gathered over the last few months of research. The first clue the team must follow is to pay a visit to one of the gangs working for Superfly. In this way, they manage to gather more and more information, which April publishes in the school newspaper. From that day on, every night, the Ninja Turtles go into hiding to face new villains and get closer and closer to finding the criminal mastermind behind all the big robberies in the city. One night, the group interrogates one of the guys who has been hired to steal the next cargo that Superfly will use to carry out its next experiment and manages to find out where they have arranged to meet. As they go to pass the information on to April, Donatello receives a message from Splinter asking them to return home as soon as possible. Worried about their father, the youngsters run back home, and April decides to accompany them. However, before they enter the house, the turtles ask the girl to wait outside, as Splinter is not a fan of humans. To their surprise, when they enter the house, the brothers discover that Splinter has prepared a party for them. Realizing that his children were becoming more and more enchanted with the human world, the rodent decided to bring the city to the sewer, but his idea didn't have the expected effect. After thanking him for the surprise party, the turtles leave and drive to the place where they were told Superfly would show up to pick up their package. What none of them realize is that the villain and his gang are also mutant animals and are much stronger than the turtles. Seeing the vehicle, Superfly flies quickly towards it but stops his attack when he realizes that those guys are mutated creatures just like him. After discovering that the substance that gave those turtles superpowers is the same one created by Stockman, the insect comes to the conclusion that the youngsters are his cousins and decides to introduce them to the rest of the family. Now that everyone knows each other, the villain invites them to his private bowling club, frequented only by mutants. When everyone is gathered around several pizza boxes, Leo asks what Superfly's purpose is, and he decides to tell the story from the beginning. His first memory is of his father saying that he was never accepted. All Stockman wanted was to have a family, so he created the mutants. One day, however, his laboratory was raided, and he was eliminated. After the soldiers left, the Fly managed to save his brothers and sisters, and as he was the eldest, he had to raise them. After a while analyzing humans, the creature realized that not all of them were evil and decided to go to the city in an attempt to live a normal life. But wherever they went, the animals caused despair and chaos until the day they began to be chased. On that day, the villain decided to eliminate all humans so that the mutants could rule the earth. To put this plan into practice, he has started to build a machine that will release green goo into the atmosphere and turn all the animals on the planet into mutants. If all goes according to plan, humans will have to bow down to the new inhabitants of Earth and end up being eliminated, devoured, and even imprisoned by them. Upon hearing this, the turtles are shocked to learn that they have delivered the last device that was missing before Superfly could complete his weapon. However, the quartet knows that they won't be able to defeat the villain and his henchmen on their own, so they decide to accompany him to his hideout to give them time to think about what to do to stop him. Through a hidden microphone, April is able to hear everything they have been talking about and decides to follow the gang. During the journey, Michelangelo uses his weapon to press the brakes and causes an accident, which results in all the villains being thrown out of the vehicle. Donatello then takes the wheel and begins to flee through the streets of the city, with the device still in the car with them. When he realizes what has happened, Superfly immediately goes after them, and the brothers end up being surrounded. After invading the vehicle, the insect attacks the turtles and tries to escape with the equipment, but Leo manages to grab it. They don't give up trying to recover the device until they have an accident, and their car goes off the road. At that point, they have no choice but to jump out of the vehicle and luckily manage to survive the fall. Immediately, Cynthia's soldiers appear and manage to surround them. Seeing April, Leo cries out for her help, but the girl decides to run away and lets the turtles be captured. Hours later, they wake up and realize that they are trapped in a laboratory, just as Splinter said would happen. The woman claims that the turtles are her property and reveals that she plans to use their DNA to create a mutagen that will be used to make an army of super soldiers. While they are subjected to painful experiments, the Superfly gang is working on the final stage of creating their world domination machine. By now, Mr. Splinter believes he has been abandoned by his children because they have been gone for a long time and have stopped answering his messages. Suddenly, the rodent hears a noise and feels excited to imagine that the youngsters have returned home. However, to his surprise, he receives a visit from April and discovers that the turtles are in danger. Convinced that they have been abandoned by their friend, the turtles have their blood sucked and are certain that they will perish there. Suddenly, however, the laboratory where they are being kept is raided, and the youngsters are relieved to discover that their father has gone there to get them. On seeing the rodent, the soldiers plan to arrest him along with the other mutants. So Splinter puts into practice everything he learned during his ninjutsu training and manages to defeat them. The big problem is that no matter how many humans the rat eliminates, new soldiers arrive at the laboratory to arrest him. Despite his advanced age, the old man is still an excellent fighter and proves to be skilled with different types of weapons. After defeating his enemies, he frees the turtles, and April appears. At that moment, the youngsters thank her for not abandoning them and listen to a lecture from their father. On the way to the lab, the girl tells Splinter the truth about everything that has happened since she met the turtles, and the rodent is extremely disappointed to discover that his children have helped Superfly get the last missing piece to build the machine that will eliminate all humans. Then the rat orders April to go home and promises that with the help of the turtles, he will clean up all the mess they have made. When he arrives at the villain's hideout, Splinter and his children are caught in an ambush and end up being surrounded. But instead of fighting, they try to convince the other mutants that eliminating humans is not the best solution, as it will make them the same as them. Upon hearing this, Gecko and his brothers realize that they never wanted to get rid of humanity. All they wanted was to be accepted. Determined to abandon all their hatred, they give up their plan for revenge and ask Superfly to turn off the machine. At this point, the villain is furious and feels betrayed by his own family. He continues his plan alone and is attacked by his brothers, who try to stop him. As he is extremely strong, the insect manages to defeat the group on its own and attacks anyone who tries to destroy its machine. Therefore, the only way to defeat it is to unite in a single attack. In doing so, the mutants throw the insect at the device before the green goo is released into the atmosphere. At that moment, the device falls into the ocean, and Superfly merges with other sea creatures to become a giant monster. When he realizes that he is even stronger than before, he sets off for New York, and Splinter sees an opportunity to change the way humans view his species. To do so, the entire group will have to unite in yet another mission to save the city from that monster. After stealing a gun she found in Cynthia's lab, April goes to meet her friends and gives the gun to Raphael. Immediately, the turtle fires his first shot and manages to hit his target, but the serum doesn't have the expected effect. The monster then returns the attack and hits all his enemies. Luckily, the turtles manage to escape alive and hide inside a bus, but the vehicle is thrown far away. Disappointed to see the city they love so much destroyed, the four brothers come up with a new plan, which consists of luring the enemy and hitting a neutralizer on the back of his head. While her friends try to save New York, April breaks into the live news and alerts people to the heroes who are fighting to stop the mutant monster from wiping out humanity. On their way to get closer to the enemy, the turtles find their father and are relieved to discover that he is alive. However, just as they are about to make the surprise attack, the giant insect manages to capture them and throws Splinter away. The rat sees his children being crushed as he tries to get up, but he's badly hurt. Suddenly, a man approaches for the first time. Instead of being attacked, the rodent receives help from humans. At that moment, humans and mutants join forces to deliver the neutralizer to the turtles, and together they attack the monster. After catching it, Raphael throws the serum to Michelangelo, who manages to give it to Donatello before being attacked. At that moment, the turtle throws the neutralizer at his brother, and Leo hits the Titan's blowhole. The substance quickly reaches Superfly's bloodstream, and all the animals that make up the giant body return to their original form. When they realize that the town has been saved by the turtles and their mutant friends, the locals gather around them and start applauding them for their bravery. From that day on, mutants were no longer treated as terrifying monsters to be destroyed, but as superheroes. Despite becoming respected members of society, Splinter and his children decide to continue living in the sewer and invite the other mutants to move in with them. As well as gaining an even bigger family, the turtles have their biggest dream come true and can now attend school like any other teenager. So, what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you like the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.